There's JJ. I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting. Are we ready? Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Huerta, would you please call the roll?
President Leah Oliveri.
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson.
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers. Here. Mark LaRue.
Present.
Jesus Jimenez.
Present.
Robert Tamez is absent. Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment? I don't see anybody jumping up to the mic. Ms. Huerta, do we have any comments that have been submitted online?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move on now. We don't have any minutes, is that correct? Or do we have minutes?
Yes, ma'am, so that's correct.
Okay. Okay. So we don't have the minutes. We'll do those next month. The weeks fly by this time of year. Okay. So our first agenda item is, and before we get the meeting started, I'd just like to make I'd like to make a statement that we have 3 vacant positions coming up for appointment, and one is a reappointment, our Diana Summers. And so I'd just like to encourage anyone out there that is listening or involved to ask people to apply. You can go to the city secretary's website and submit an application. You will need to do one for B and for A, I believe.
That's right.
But the applications are due tomorrow. And I will also say, if you have an interest, consider emailing individual council members, individual emails, and even calling them and expressing to them your interest, because they like to know that you're really not just going through and checking a bunch of boxes.
And Ms. Oliveri, Mr. Jimenez is also up for reappointment. There's 2 reappointments.
Oh, I'm sorry, there are 2. Sorry. Okay. So we have 2 reappointments and 2 vacancies? 3. Robert, so it's quite a turn, yeah. So we have myself, I'm termed out. We have one person who moved out of town, unfortunately, and Mr. Tamez is also termed out. So, and the new board would be seated in October.
Yes, ma'am.
And the council will make an appointment in early September. All right, with that, our first agenda item is a motion to modify the recommended Corpus Christi B Corporation's fiscal year 24-25 operating budget for economic development by $221,000. Essentially, this is asking us to put another $221,000 in addition to the money we already fund to the CCREDC. Mr. Marquez, are you going to make the presentation?
Yeah, it's really just a short presentation. Good afternoon, Arturo Marquez, Director of the Office of Economic Development with the City of Corpus Christi. So yes, historically the city has provided roughly about $575,000 each year for the operations of the RDC, of which $221,283 come from the general fund. So the motion here today is to request well, actually let me backtrack a little bit. As you all may know, there is a bit of a shortfall from the city's budget, and therefore we have been looking into different ways to make that adjustment on the city side. One of the things that we identified was that the Type B can fund this $221,000 through y'all's budgets. So the request here today is to allocate that $221,283 from your budget into the RADC.
Okay, and I'd like to point out that this is in addition to the money that we already fund to the CCREDC, and that the current funding is for kind of a purchase service, which is they are charged with reviewing all our applications, doing the financial analysis, doing the compliance, and so this would be in addition to that. Is it 130 or 160?
150.
150. Well, I was close. 150. So it's more money. Does anybody have any? Do I see any board members who want to speak to this? And Mr. Tamez is here now.
I'm here. Traffic.
Yeah, I know. A lot of construction too. So we are on the first item on CCREDC funding. Mr. Tomás. Does anybody have any comments? I can't see this. Is
Oh,
that you, Ms.
yes.
Summers? Okay, sorry. That's why I can't see. No.
With the additional contribution to the CCREDC, are we going to request any appointments to their board or
I think that's a very good
any
point.
representation?
Right. So at the present time, I believe that for the money that is allocated by the city gets 6 appointments. One is the mayor, maybe one is appointed by the mayor, and 4 are appointed by the council. So I guess what you're suggesting is if we put this, what is now going to be half of what is funding, that we get
Have some
2, like the
representation.
chair and the vice chair or something like that,
Yes.
would be automatically on the CCREDC board. Does anybody else have any comments on that?
I mean, I think it makes sense just from where we are also. I think it would kind of help with some of the other issues we've had in the past with, things coming back and forth from the EDC. If we had some representation from type B on there, I think it would probably smooth the process out.
Mr. Tomez, you probably remember the days when there were people that were crossed over, but they were crossed over because they were investor appointments, I believe, to the CCREDC.
It's all on.
Mr. Wilson, any comments?
No, I'm ready to make a motion if you want one.
Okay.
Had a quick,
Oh, JJ.
oh, yes, you.
I forgot.
So the 575, the 221, 284 that's requested, is that in addition to 575 or that's?
No, so everything else.
That's a
will-
shortfall?
Yeah, no, everything else will stay as is. The total amount that the city will partake in is still the 575. However, currently the 221 comes from the general fund, and that's what
Okay.
we're requesting that we switch over. So all in all, the city will still participate with the 575. It's just
Okay.
that 221 difference.
So basically, we're supplanting the 221,000 that is now coming from the general fund.
That is correct.
And you will continue the balance from other funding
Right.
sources.
Yeah.
And just for the, for transparency purposes, the other additional funds comes from gas, wastewater, water, and stormwater. That, again, as mentioned, will stay as is. Those will not get impacted.
Okay.
So is the ask 221, 283 or 221, 284? That's what I was trying to make the connection, because I know the general fund is 221,283,
Yeah.
and the ask is 221,284.
That's just probably a rounding
Okay, just a
thing,
dollar.
but yeah, let's go ahead with the bigger number, 221. Yeah, 284.
We'll throw a dollar on the table.
Get the extra
It's
dollar.
So few pennies.
Mike got a raise.
So we have a total of 575 with $1. $175,001. Okay. Yeah, that's what's kind of throwing me off. Like, so the 84 and I saw the 83. I was like,
No, he's going to make a motion. Let's see what his motion is.
Madam President, I move that we approve the proposed budget amendment
Okay,
as presented.
okay. Now, do we have an amendment? Okay.
I'd like-
There's a second.
To make an amendment that, how are we going to state this? That the type B has representation, the chairman and the vice chairman of the type B corporation serve as appointees to the CCREDC? Was
In recognition for that funding, yes. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay. So all those in favor of, go ahead. Sure. I'm sorry.
Hi, Mike Culbertson, the CCREDC. When we're talking about this, we're talking about, so the city has 6 plus ex officio. You're talking about those 6, right?
We're talking about
more.
2 of those 6. We're
Okay.
not saying add. We're
Okay.
saying right now the city's getting 6 for
Correct.
the
And you're correct in your
575.
assessment?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
So it's not additional. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, all those in favor of the original motion of $221,284?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? No? None? Okay, but that motion passes. So, the second item is a motion to approve an agreement of $1 $1,897,870 to Del Mar College Foundation for the equipment needed for 5 different training programs, or programs for enhanced skill development. And Randy's going to make that presentation.
Good afternoon,
Almaguer.
Madam President, board members. Randy Almaguer with your Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation. So before I get into the presentation, just want to acknowledge the board and just thank y'all. You know, I know last meeting I brought this to y'all, just kind of see what, you know, thought about it, and it looked like, you know, as you see now, everyone was kind of on board, and let's see what we got here. So what's happened since then and here, we did have to take this back to our board. We had overwhelming support, just a bunch of good comments talking about this program, how it would help, you know, from industry standpoint. We even had port commissioners talking about it that were appointees on our board, and really just saying that, yes, this is something that is needed, and they did recommend it to Type B for approval. So as we get into this, these are 5 programs that already exist with Del Mar. I know that you all had asked that last time, and yes, these are existing programs. They're just looking to enhance these programs. So talking about the mission, you know, what the EDC's mission, Del Mar's mission, and how they just kind of run, you know, on the same line here, you know, with the EDC, our mission is, you know, any projects, programs that create or retain primary jobs here in the area. As you can see with Del Mar, the same thing, promoting economic growth through education and skilled workforce development. And as you see, the purpose for this enhanced skills training for high demand careers here in the area. So talking about the challenges, you know, Del Mar College came to us back in January talking about, you know, the workforce challenges, you know, getting everyone up to speed, the onboarding process and what have you. And, you know, the EDC also said, yes, that is true, you know, going out and doing all these compliance visits. Again, I've mentioned the 40 plus we do, and talking to industry and seeing, yes, there is that onboarding process. They'd like that shortened. They're talking about getting more workers in, getting into these programs so they can go into these jobs. And all these 5 different programs do translate to different jobs in the area, in the region. So if you look at the different ones, you have industrial instrumentation, artificial intelligence, engineering and robotics, chemistry, laboratory technicians, and industrial machine and welding. And as you can see, the total request is that up to amount of the $1,897,870. And then it's broken the 5 programs, and you see the potential job growth. You see the pay going in. They're very good paying jobs, and you're talking about keeping local talent here coming from the ISDs going into Del Mar. And you're talking about also, you know, bringing in people from outside the area, and we'll get into that as we move on the slides, but different areas coming from Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and seeing what these programs have to offer, and seeing, hey, you know, they're going to be, you know, average salary $65,000 to $92,000. Well, they're going to be able to buy a house here. You know, they're going to be able to shop here, buy a vehicle, start a family, and continue that process of going into the ISDs, into Del Mar College. We also have A&M Corpus as well. And then you talk about, okay, you know, what do these programs go to? What industries? You know, what organizations? And as you can see, between the 5 different, you know, these are just a few that we identified. You have anywhere from Cheniere to City of Corpus Christi, Port of Corpus Christi. You have Steel Dynamics again. You had Dennis Black in our meeting, you know, just, you know, praising this program. And how, you know, updating that technology and being the benchmark and that trendsetter to being at the highest level of having, you know, your tools, your equipment, and that training, you know, as top notch, as high as can be, so people do want to come here, and the people that are here want to stay here. And then, as I was talking about, you have the other areas around that have programs such as these that offering different things. As you can see, manufacturing and advanced manufacturing is in 3 of the competing areas around here, from Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. As you can see, Houston's focusing on healthcare, energy, and logistics. But you can see there is high demand job training programs across the area. This isn't something that's brand new. It's just something that we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve here. And you talk about, again, the importance, that attraction and retention. And again, this is via the innovation here and being that trendsetter, being the benchmark, being the ones doing that. You know how tools, equipment get dated, and you have to always be ahead of that. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the 5 different programs. Again, talking about the workforce development, again, these are high demand careers in the area. And that's it. It was just a short presentation. I know we reached out in between last meeting and this meeting, through board members, Del Mar College, and any, questions that, hopefully we answered. If you did have any other, we do have representatives if I'm not able to answer anything. But that concludes my presentation.
Any questions?
No, just
Summers?
if I
Go ahead.
have a quick comment. No, just more of a comment. This is a great program. Coming from the engineering construction side, I can tell you, everybody here in this room, and I'm sure most of you all know that there's a huge need for skilled labor and skilled specialized labor, and for some clients, like Tesla and others that bring different technology. So I think it's a great program, having the right tools and the right equipment. And I know that equipment is not cheap either. So being able to provide that to the students and people wanting to get certified in that field is key. So no, I appreciate what y'all are doing, and keep it up.
Thank you, board member.
Summers?
I would second all of those comments, but also I just want to thank you for getting the answers to our questions and reaching out. The fact that over 75% of these students stay local, that's huge for our city, so thank you.
I'd just like to mention that this is not only for the unemployed, but it's a skills upgrading. I mean, for existing welders, and when you were putting your list over of who might be employers, I'm thinking, well, the city has a big lab function in utilities, and so there's a lot of opportunities out there for some of those skill sets in this community. The only other thing I would say is, well, I'll say 2 things. One of them is that when y'all do your comparisons, I just finished a major economic development study in the Valley, and the Valley is very much a competitor of ours, and when we talk about where our labor goes, we compete with them, and so I would encourage the CCREDC to kind of include them, and as the folks from Del Mar know, they're doing advanced manufacturing, they're doing IT down there, and so we need to recognize that there's 1 million people down there, and they've got a very robust education center. And I'm seeing Del Mar shake their head, yes. So I just start using them as a benchmark as well. And then the last thing is to just say what an amazing asset Del Mar College is to our community and our economic development efforts. I mean, when you talk to industry people, one of the things that they come here for is the kind of training that vocational, you call it, technical training, specialized even for their industry. And so you are very much a part of why Corpus Christi might get selected for a business to come here. Thank you. Does anybody from Del Mar want to say anything?
David Loeb, Del Mar College Regent. I just wanted to say thank you. The reason why industry says that is because of partnerships like this with the city that have been ongoing and helpful. The state has made some strides recently to help us, but when this partnership first started, it was because state government did not see the value that we saw here locally. And that was in large part due to the work of the 4A, 4B, and the City Council, making sure that we were doing this kind of work. So looks like we're going to have a good vote today, but I really want to thank you all for your partnership and thank the city manager and the staff for your partnership, because this is a team sport and it takes all of us pitching in.
Including the major employers here who have been absolutely a big
Absolutely. And
catalyst.
one thing I don't know that everybody knows is that all of these programs, the curriculum is advised by partnerships with those major employers. We as a board are funding the staff to make sure that we have this equipment staffed. The major employers and even minor employers contribute resources for internships for the people or apprenticeships for the people coming out of the programs or even while they're still in, and also provide scholarship money to the foundation. So this is a true 360-degree partnership amongst a huge number of people, but just want to take the time to thank you all for your part in it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve this agreement. And let me note that we will need to come back next month and have a public hearing. It kind of slipped off the agenda somewhere along Friday, no doubt. So it'll be back next month with a public hearing, but we need a motion to...
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 1.897870 to Del Mar College for equipment for 5 different programs for enhanced skills development. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Motion carries. We're on a roll. Okay. At this point, I need to open a public hearing and on a lot of small business assistance agreements, including ones with LIP Fund, SCORE, which is Service Corps of Retired Executives, Texas A&M University Corpus Christi for their internship and other programs, and 5 with Del Mar College District for a total of $1,076,700 to assist small business within the City of Corpus Christi to create jobs and investments. And we had in our packet all of those agreements. I have to admit that I didn't read all 100 pages of them over the weekend, so I'm trusting y'all that they are well written and correct. But that's why we have an attorney. That's why we do. But those are complex, so it may take more than one set of eyes, right? So the public hearing is open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding these agreements? I don't see anyone, so I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve the agreements.
Madam President, real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy.
I just want to talk about, all the programs are doing well right now with the exception of LIV Fund. But Laura reached out to me late Friday, and they're not going to be, with the challenges as bad as they thought they were going to be. So they're going to be probably close to the 150 mark by the end of this. They're a calendar year program, so by the end of September. So she just wanted to share that with y'all that, they had a 200K ask and they're coming back with a 150. Well, they're going to be around the 150 anyway. So just letting you know that.
So she feels like there's room for the...
Not for the 200, she was just saying.
Just saying 150, just cap us at 150.
Yes, with everything going on, some good news kind of thing, good news item kind of thing, that they weren't going to be, the shortfall wasn't going to be as much from that request for FY24.
Well, and maybe on that note, Peter or Heather, Ms. Ulrich would like to speak. We had a visit from the now president of the LIFT Fund, and they were offering some exciting ideas of things that might be done in the future to further stimulate small business development. So I think we'll be hearing more, y'all will be hearing more about that next year. Did I miss anything? Okay. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds.
Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And with the note that it's $150,000 for LIFT Fund.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next is we have a presentation update regarding requested FY 2025 Type B funded projects. As a note, we approved a couple of projects, but we had some questions about those projects at the last meeting, and the staff was kind enough to try to bring forth additional information.
Good afternoon, Arturo Marquez, Director of Office of Economic Development with the City of Corpus Christi. And for this presentation, there were a couple of questions asked on the previous meeting regarding two of the projects that were presented to you all. So today we've brought Mr. Jesse Gilbert and Jennifer Vela to be able to give a short presentation on one of these projects, which is the Texas State Aquarium. And later we have another presentation on the Bear Lane to be able to answer any of your questions. So if we can just pull those two presentations up, please. We'll start with the Texas State Aquarium.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Gilbert.
Oh, thank you guys, appreciate it. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of update. I know we had put a parking program in front of you guys, and you guys had some questions about that during the last meeting. So show you a little bit about what's happened with that. Oh, there you go. There we go. So we approached city leadership earlier this year about a $2 million request to complete resurfacing of the parking lot under the Harbor Bridge. That accounts for the vast majority of our parking at the aquarium. It's about 203,000 square feet. Not enough parking for us at this time during the summer. And so we were looking at resurfacing that, but also had some plans going forward. There were also some discussions on how parking on North Beach works between the two attractions. We do split that revenue with the Lexington. So we every month reconcile that, and then quarterly the Lexington sends us revenue or vice versa, depending on who's had more visitors. So the Lexington does get revenue for that. So what's outlined here in blue is our current large lot that's under the current Harbor Bridge. One of the challenges with this lot is the ownership post Harbor Bridge demolition, and so we are working on that now. I think there's a lot of entities that are certainly interested in that, and so we are looking at that. But knowing that we're running out of parking, and that we are have this challenge with the Harbor Bridge, last month we closed on this 151,000 square foot parking lot that's just down the street from the aquarium. So we anticipate that we will use this starting in the summers. I think we plan on bringing in front of city leadership soon our plans. So there are some significant expansion plans for the aquarium that are not only including the attraction, so where people come and have a good time, but we're actually looking at redeveloping a lot of the land on North Beach. So we've actually purchased a couple other parcels of land so for some growth there. So what we are asking is for that fund to be directed, or that funding to be directed to this parking lot. This would improve that. The drive aprons into that parking lot are pretty much non-existent at this point. We want to add lighting and just make it. Our goal here is to really elevate the experience of North Beach. You're coming to one of the top aquariums in the United States, and you need to feel like that. And so that's one of our priorities here, is to make North Beach feel just better and more welcoming to the guests that come. Our economic impact last year alone was $195 million. So a lot of people are coming, they're spending their money here in Corpus Christi, and so we want to make sure that that works. So just to give you a reference point, you can see where this new lot is in relation to the aquarium. We also purchased the lot behind that. So we purchased about 3 city blocks earlier this month. That is a bit of a walk, and right now it'd be a walk through a construction area and soon to be a demolition area with the Harbor Bridge. So the aquarium is investing in a tram, so it'll be free of charge, and we'll just make the loop in North Beach. If you remember, way back, I got here in 2003, there was an RTA tram that used to just come run a circle on North Beach. We're going to resurrect that. The aquarium's going to make that investment, and we'll have a tram that runs from this lot to the aquarium to the Lexington in front of the hotels and just makes a continuous loop on North Beach. So that's what we have going. So answer any questions you might have.
How many employees do you have at the aquarium?
FTEs about 175, seasonally 270-ish, give or take. So this time of year we're staffed up, but that'll change here in about 2 weeks.
And your expansion will, of course, add some additional...
The expansion, yeah, so there's a couple of phases of expansion. One is the attraction. So I'll spill the beans and Jen can get me later. We're bringing manatees to the Texas State Aquarium. And so we believe manatees will be similar to dolphins and the amount of people that brings in. So we saw a lift with Dolphin Bay of about 10% of visitors. So we think we'll see probably, I'll go conservative and say 5 to 8%. That'll certainly raise some revenue for the aquarium. That'll be on the aquarium property, so you'll be able to see manatees there. The land that we purchased, we are actually going to build a workforce development training center, and that'll be in conjunction with state agencies around wildlife disasters. We'll present that in greater detail, but that'll be a whole development training center, the first of its kind in the United States.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So instead of because there is an ownership issue about where you're parking now, am I correct?
That's correct.
So instead of us contributing to any money into that. This would be us investing in this additional property and parking.
That's correct. The property that the aquarium owns, I think that's the responsible thing to do.
Right, right. And so, but you have other partners or other funds, and I'm kind of asking if we're not funding it all.
That's correct.
You've got quite a bit of other money. We'll just be a partner with y'all to close that gap.
That's correct.
Right?
So we purchased the land out of our capital funds, and then we will be launching a capital campaign later this year, maybe into the beginning of next year for this entire process. So.
Okay. Do you have an estimate on the total, not the new attractions, but just on the parking improvements? Do you have a total budget for that?
We don't. No, not yet. That's what we're working on now as we close this up to see what it's like.
So this is a question, I guess, for somebody. When we do this agreement, how does B come in? When you get the other money, we pledge the money, I guess, we budget the money, and then when you have laid out the full plan, you would be back with more details? Is that right? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, Heather.
Yeah, so this would be on a reimbursement basis. The Type B board, you can provide us direction on how you would like that development agreement to somewhat look. And then just like we do with all of our other development agreements, we would enter into a development agreement with the Texas State Aquarium. And if it's we want first dollars in, but we don't want to be first dollars, it would be second dollars, or however we want to structure that. And so that is definitely something we can come back as we move through this process, come back and have the discussion on what is the preference of the Type B board as far as how does the Type B money fit into it, and how does that work. But it would be on a reimbursement basis. We would just need to see what those timing, what those milestones, what that percentage is, and how we'd want to move forward with that.
Okay, so right now, we have included in the budget an amount of $2 million. It is to assist with parking for the aquarium, and you will come back to the next board with specifics and a contract that spells out.
Exactly. We'll have more discussions with the board on how the board would like that development agreement to look like.
Is that good?
I do have one question or comment, really. The current parking is much closer.
Right.
And I would imagine you have a lot of stroller traffic.
We do.
So will the trams be accessible for?
They will. So think Disney World. The open air trams, you can get wheelchairs on strollers, and they're just running nonstop.
So they will be accessible.
They will. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
And our planning right now is we don't think we'll need that new lot during the off season months. So say Labor Day through Memorial Day. Now spring break might be a little bit different. So that time we'll be using our current lots that are very close to the aquarium, but this tram will run anytime we see usage over there. So,
okay.
Yeah, completely.
Seasonal lot, seasonal trams.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And Chair, can I add one thing?
Sure.
At some point, Jesse, your parking under the current Harbor Bridge is going to be compromised due to the demolition, right? Isn't that going to be closed?
It is, yeah. So we met with the Flatiron a few weeks ago to get a kind of an update on their timeline. So during demolition of the current bridge, our lot will be closed, and they're actually bringing in cushioning material, so it'll be completely unusable for some period of time. We're hoping that's in the shoulder season, but
okay. And so, in part, this auxiliary lot is to give you parking when that demolition process takes place, which could take months for all we know.
We've been told to plan for about 6.
6 months. Okay.
So if they do it in the winter, it's good.
That's what we're pushing for. I mean, we probably see about 400,000 guests in the summer months. So if we need to displace all those folks, that's going to be
we did not have yet from TxDOT a demolition schedule or plan. So it's at the will of their design builder.
Who, by the way, owns the bridge, in case anybody out there wants to use it for anything else.
Right.
So, okay, that's great. And you are partnering with the port as well, I understand.
Oh, yeah, the port's a huge supporter of the organization on the rescue side and some of the other initiatives.
Right, even the parking, I think, some of that, yeah.
So we have
because you have that's kind of your employee parking right now, too.
Right now, we're parking employees across the street from the aquarium on a Pearl Street lot. We're actually planning on building there a new facility as well. So that's what we're kind of thinking long term. What do we do? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate the clarification. You're in the budget. Mr. Marcus, did you have somebody to talk about Bear Lane? Mr. Young?
Sure. This is a request or return to the council. I'm sorry, to Type A and Type B to discuss Bear Lane. Did have a few questions that you all asked last time we had engaged. Just to give you all greater detail about the project, it's a 1.5 mile project where we'll be doing street improvements, which includes new surface drainage and curbing. And as stated before, that this is a great opportunity for us to leverage funding, meaning that we were requested by the RTA to join in partnership for a joint project where the RTA is pursuing funding to do the surface improvements, to include drainage improvements for the corridor, and in return they asked the city to replace the utilities. So here is the request. We're requesting $3.9 million for the design of the Bear Lane corridor, and in return we anticipate that there's going to be a $36 million project, so a significant return on the investment with the assistance of the Type A, Type B board.
Okay. I have become aware, and maybe you're ready to speak to this, but it wasn't made clear to us in the past. There are some businesses out there that are active. Do you know? I mean, somebody was reeling off to me the number of employees, not just at the RTA, but I think Barcom is out there, and a big electrical company. Do you have those numbers?
Yes, ma'am. We have in that corridor. We have the RTA. We have Gulf Compress. Mm-hmm. We have Barcom, and we have the Coastal Bend Blood Center. So we do have a combination of both industrial and commercial businesses along that corridor.
Is there an electric company out there too?
I think so.
Big State, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the estimated total cost for the design? I mean, at one point we were told 30 million, and now and then 10 million. And so do you have an estimate?
We was able to nail that down. Yes, ma'am. It's a request for $3.9 million for the design. The construction is $30 million, but the project as a total is $36 million.
Okay, so it is 36, not 10.
Yes.
Okay, that kind of, I think, answers your question a little bit more, right, about the percentage?
Right, the design is typically about 10%.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it is $36 million.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the 4.8? Because on the write-up says the design is 4.843, but then on the write-up by the picture, by the aerial, says 3.9.
It's 3.9.
It's 3.9. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the write-up it says 4.843, 4,843,000.
Yeah, there's been some.
So that's what I was.
The write-up
See where kind of showing on the map. Is that
project?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right underneath the project says 3.9, but then on the project write-up it says 4.8.
No, the accurate number is $3.9 million, which is verified by our project managers and engineering department.
Okay. And that's just for design only, right?
And the construction funding is anticipated to come from federal resources?
That's correct. It's an opportunity for us to leverage third-party funding.
Would they be able to build all the way out, or just up to where RTA's draw?
Oh, no, ma'am, all the way out, and the limits are in the description.
Joe Muir Road?
Yes, ma'am.
North
Which would be John Mirror to...
North Padre Island Drive.
That's correct. John Mirror to SPID, or I'm sorry, NPID.
Yeah. Okay.
And our funding of the design for this project, that's contingent on them getting those federal and state dollars?
No, ma'am. We pay for the design. If we were able to get this project approved with the Type A, Type B board, then we'll go ahead and move forward with conducting the design. And unfortunately, if the funding wasn't approved for the grant, then we'd have to find another funding source from the city to go ahead and do the construction.
So for them to get the federal, they have to have the design work.
So more than likely, if for some reason that the federal grant did fall through, we'd have the design paid for, and just like with other construction along major corridors, it'd be added to the subsequent bond program. So if it wasn't federally funded with the grant, then you'd see it on bond 26.
And included in this, I think you also said, is right-of-way acquisition, which they also may require.
That's correct.
To be local and not federal money.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So the only thing I thought about after, I think the motion was to fund the project, but it was take the funds that would normally be allocated to Type B roads money for 2025, use that, and then the balance would come from B. And we had sort of specific amounts, but that's all kind of depends on how much money actually gets collected in as sales tax. So is it clear that the first money, we would utilize all the money coming for the road money and the balance would come from Type B?
Yes.
Is that an understanding?
Yes, that is the understanding. Is we do have other commitments against that road money for 2025. So it would be, we're estimating probably about $4.5 million that would go to, or $4 million that would go to roads. I believe 2.5 million, I think, is going back to make the Williams project whole, because we took 2.5 million and put it to the Huntwick project. And so that would leave, we're estimating about 1.4, almost $1.5 million in street funding. That funding would be used first and fully exhausted, and then the remainder would come from the economic development pot.
Yeah, on here, they're showing me that y'all have 1.48, and I think last time we were thinking it was more like 1.7. Am I misremembering?
I think based off of, we have revised our sales tax revenue fund down since we first started going through the budget process.
Okay.
So that's probably the difference there, just because our sales tax collections have flattened some. So I think what is in the packet is it's about 1.4, almost 1.5 million would come from the street funding first, and then the remainder would come from the economic development funds.
JJ, did you have a?
No, I was going to say, I don't know if they're able to put up the slide, but yeah, it's on the presentation. Yeah, because the number that we were asking is on the bottom.
Right.
Yeah,
Is that,
great.
have we covered what you were asking? Mm-hmm. Okay. So 1.48 out of Type B is?
Yes.
Out of the streets, excuse me, with the balance to be, and of course you don't have a contract yet for the actual design.
Exactly.
So it could,
Exactly. And so we would still have to, just like all of our other projects, we still have to come back and this is just we were clarifying what would be in the budget. We still have to have the public hearing. We still have to come forward with the contract. And so there's still a couple of steps left before this money would be fully spent.
So we're not really used to, as a board, really having that much involvement in these streets. So that's another thing for the board in the future to think through. Like, do y'all want regular reports on progress or whatever? I mean, and will we have to approve, y'all decide this, I'm not saying, do we have to approve the engineering contract or whatever?
I don't believe so. We'll double check. I don't think that you're basically, it's just like all of our, most of our projects, it's a development agreement, or it's an agreement that you're entering into to provide the funding. I think for our other streets projects, we haven't necessarily brought a separate agreement forward. It is in the funding, it's in the budget, and we utilize that funding source as part of the project funding. So there hasn't been a separate agreement come forward.
Thank you, Ms. Allhart.
Is this a 2-lane road, or how big is this road?
I think right now, currently it's 2, right? It's a 2.
So it's about 100 or 60 to 100 feet wide? Is there a turning lane?
I'm not sure the width. We're tracking the length. I'm not sure the width, but we can get that information.
Okay. And I guess my other question is, is the cost associated that we're ballparking these design fees off of, is that in line with other road construction fees for 1.5 miles?
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Construction has gone up. It's pretty expensive. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot.
And there's a lot of drainage in this one too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
So there are contributing factors to the cost
Yes.
associated with the drainage. Does that drainage open up any other corridors? Does it tie into any other drainage? Is there any other benefits to this?
I think with that, Junior Beck is having some issues.
That's correct. And we actually just did some improvements to Junior Beck. That's another major corridor that was complete. So that's going to help to make connectivity into, the rest of the stormwater and drainage system. So, yes, our engineers are always looking for opportunities to open up the drainage system and have a more complete system.
Okay, so it will open up Junior Beck is what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it would help them with their drainage anyway. Yeah. I mean, normally, though, if you're oversizing, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but if you're oversizing for undeveloped property, which some of this clearly is, then they would ultimately have a responsibility to come in and pay for that when they develop. Is that right?
You talking about after existing, or are you talking about?
I'm saying if I have a piece of undeveloped property right now, and you are putting in drainage and utilities such that it will be served in the future, then they will be charged when they do develop for the value of those improvements.
No, ma'am. You saying that after, you talking about that once we put the existing system in, and then once they start developing, will they then have to contribute to that system?
Well, if you're putting in utilities such that an undeveloped piece, I'm way off my area of expertise, but if you're putting in utility systems such that they are oversized to serve now undeveloped pieces of property, I thought they had a responsibility to make a contribution back for the fact that that drainage and utility is available to them.
Yeah, for residential, we are responsible for 50% of the collector road if we put in a residential development.
Yeah.
That's at the request of the developer.
Once the developer starts developing. And
But so there won't be that payback with this? It's just...
We'll verify. I don't believe so, because this is a city-initiated project. We're not asking a developer to oversize where we would participate, but we'll double check on that.
Or just oversize to the point you have development and then make them come back in and pay for it later. I mean, that's another option.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, drainage is tricky in that area, so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
Bog.
I assume, but that cost is probably the road's probably going to be concrete. I assume by that, by the price tag.
The only other thing danger to myself and others, but some of the discussions we've been having, he sent me back to read the agreements between CCREDC and the board, and I think we need to take a look at those agreements, because as I read those agreements, even a project like this one or the aquarium should be going through the CCREDC for review, and that has not occurred in the case of some of these B projects. So either we need to look at those agreements, but there's no that if it's a city project, it doesn't. It says all projects. So something for y'all to contemplate in the future.
Yes, ma'am.
Before somebody catches us. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any more questions? Mr. Zanoni, do you have a report?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I can give you a report here if the public wants to hang on just for a second on the city's budget process. So we are more than halfway through the city's budget process for the new fiscal year that begins October 1. And on July 30th, over 3 weeks ago, I presented the proposed budget, and that was a recommendation. So ultimately, City Council, after a lot of input, has the ultimate responsibility of adopting a budget for the city. So over the past 3 weeks, we have held 3 workshops with the City Council. They're all on Thursday, beginning at 9. We have a 4th one this Thursday. And then on August 29th will be the 5th and final workshop with the City Council. This Thursday will cover police and fire and development services, if anybody's interested. And then next week, we have the capital improvement program, our hotel occupancy tax funds, how those are being recommended for allocation. And then we'll begin to talk to Council about proposed amendments to the budget that we've been developing over the past 3.5 weeks. The community is important in our budget development process, and we had 7 total community input sessions with the community. 5 of those we've held already, and we have the final 2 this week. In fact, one is tonight, a special one on the island at Dock Seafood, and then the 7th one is this Wednesday, and that will be in the Cal Allen, Annabelle, Toloso, Midway area, and that'll be at the seafood, the Railroad Seafood Inn and Restaurant. So our community input sessions are changing a little bit. We had a little bit of a shift from the normal way of having an auditorium-style seating with Q&A And we, at the council's challenge, we tried to make them a little more engaging and at fun places. In fact, we were at Fun Trackers the other night, and that one turned out real nice. And so we had the first 3 like that, and then the last 2 have been kind of a hybrid of we'll begin with the first half hour or so with the community sitting in chairs. Tonight we'll be in picnic tables at docks, and we'll just generally go over the budget, about a 10, 15-minute presentation. And then we hear from the community in that sit-down format. And then for the rest of the meeting, which is about a half hour to 40 minutes, they can go to any one of the stations that we have. We have about 9 of our top departments that are there. And so they can really have some good, meaningful conversation with directors, frontline staff on things that matter to the community. And that we've received a lot of good feedback on that. So it's a good change this year. We adapted, as I said, this seems to be the best format where there's a formal presentation, opportunity for the group to ask a couple questions and hear some comments, and then we break out to any one of the tables. They can meet with the elected officials, with myself, and some of our department heads. So that'll be, we'll do that again tonight and then again on Wednesday night. So after that, by the time we get to September 3rd, the day after Labor Day, the council will have held 5 workshops on the budget and 7 community input sessions, plus all the other dialogue we get just from regular interacting with the community. But on Tuesday, September 3rd, will be the first read on the budget. So things will be pretty final by then on that council meeting on the first Tuesday, September 3rd. And then the second read and the final adoption is set for September 10th. And this allows us, it's a little early, but the tax assessor asks for our information sooner so he can send out the notices in time for tax notices. And then the budget becomes effective for October 1. So
If I was a citizen and I wanted to just see the information on the budget, I would go to the city's website.
Thank you. Yes, because we have a great website listing all of our materials. So go to cctexas.com, and on the main page that comes up, a few of the it's like the 3rd or 4th headline there. Just click on proposed FY24 budget, and that'll take you to the budget web page. And there is the entire budget in its entirety, the entire capital budget. The presentation I made on the 30th of July, and every workshop presentation is there also. So a lot of good information. If you miss any one of those and you want to kind of learn about the budget, that's the best place to go, cctexas.com. Just scroll down on that main page and you'll see FY25 budget. Click on it and it'll take you to all those resources.
Are you YouTubing those presentations from the last 2 meetings? Or do you know?
Yes, the workshops at the city council are broadcast, and they're probably YouTube and
I didn't know if the 2 sessions were
yes. Yeah, the workshops are live here in the city council chambers, and so they're on our normal channels. The community engagement sessions are not broadcast on our social media.
Okay.
It would be a little difficult, we thought, to capture, the conversations being held. However, one of our council members did have COVID in one of our workshops, so we live casted her in, and several residents had a chance to speak with her remotely with the headphone, and so that was kind of neat. I did the same thing with the person.
Yeah, I was kind of making a plug for the YouTube channel because I know some people sometimes have a little bit of problem with the video on the main page, and so through the Wayne website. So if you're looking for information, you might also check the city's YouTube channon.
Okay, good point.
It may be on there too.
Okay. Good. So that concludes this presentation. We look forward to seeing anybody or any and everyone at the last 2 workshops, and then here at City Council, and then the big dates of September 3rd and September 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Zanoni. If there's no further business, I'll call this meeting adjourned. You going to switch over? Yeah. You'll let us know. For all the information. I'd like to call the meeting of the Type A Corpus Christi Business and Job Development Corporation to order. Ms. Huerta, would you read the roll, please?
President Leah Oliveri.
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson.
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers.
Here.
Mark LaRue.
Present.
Jesus Jimenez. Robert Themis. Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make public comments? I don't see anyone. Ms. Huerta, has anyone indicated a public comment?
No, ma'am.
By mail.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. We do not have our minutes this meeting. Again, I want to make a quick plea that there are going to be vacancies on this board. Mr. Temez and I are both termed out, and we have one vacancy. And so if there are people interested in applying for this very exciting job, and I'm serious, it's an important job, either for Type A or Type A and Type B, you can go to the city secretary, the website, and the applications need to be submitted by tomorrow. If you are interested, please reach out to council members individually and explain to them why you're interested. That really helps them know the people who put their name in the hat. So it's just a personal plea. And with that, I see Ms. Holbrook ready to give us an update on sales tax with reauthorization.
Yes, Heather Hurlbert, Assistant City Manager. So we did want to update the board. I'll try to make this brief on where we are within the sales tax reauthorization. So just a reminder, so we're talking about our local sales tax. We have 2 cents of local sales tax that is utilized for on the local level. Of that, there are the 2.18 cents or 0.125 cents, which are currently authorized for the 2 Type A projects. And so currently the 2 projects that are authorized for sales tax use is the construction of the American Bank Center Arena. And so that one is coming to a close. The debt service or the debt for that project will be paid off in March of 2025. And so that has been utilized not only for the debt for that project, but also reinvesting back into the arena since our revenues have continued to grow over and above what is needed for that debt service. The second project that was authorized by voters back in 2000 is for major improvements to the downtown seawall. And so again, the sales tax was utilized for the debt. The debt will be paid off in March of 26. And so we've been very fortunate in the fact that not only the debt service has been covered, but also the additional revenues that have been able to be reinvested back in the seawall itself, back into the marina, the water gardens, the art museum, the art center, and we also had asked for the Natural History Museum also, which we're looking at that coming up within the next fiscal year. So being able to reinvest back in some of those facilities. So at the conclusion of these, we're asking voters to approve for new projects or new purposes. And so back on August the 13th last week, which seems like a really long time ago, the City Council did approve 2 propositions that will go to voters November the 5th. So the first is Proposition E, and so there are 2 purposes that are included in Proposition E. One is for streets for arterial and collector projects, similar to what we currently have approved as a portion under the current Type B. This will be coming forward as an authorization under Type B instead of Type A. And so we have the streets, arterial, and collector along with the recreational and community facilities, which are limited to the American Bank Center complex, which includes the arena, Selena Auditorium, and the Convention Center, along with the 3 museums that are in the C District, which includes the Science and History Museum, the Art Museum, along with the Asian Cultures Museum, the Harbor Playhouse, and the Water Garden. So all of these assets are owned by the city. They are run, the museums, the Harbor Playhouse are run by third parties that lease those buildings out and run those operations. But we do have a lot of infrastructure problems and needs within all of those facilities. And so this will help with the improvements, the funding for the improvements for those. Like I mentioned, it will be going to the voters as a Type B authorization instead of a Type A authorization. The funding will be split 50-50. 50% of the funding will go to the streets, 50% of the funding will go to the recreational and community facilities.
So question before you move on.
Sure.
So in essence, in many ways, this arterial collector would be combined with what we
Yes.
already have.
Exactly.
And that would even allow us to sometimes not get into this, have to borrow into the future to do a project or something.
Exactly. So yes, they would, even though they're under two different authorizations, they could be joined together for projects, which would give us almost 1/8 cents for arterial and collector streets between the two authorizations.
And then we would handle residential, which I know has been a cry, through the bonds or other mechanisms.
Exactly. And so that was one of the things that we heard from when we did our surveys and did a lot of our community input, is that people really were concerned about the residential streets, which has been an issue around the city. And so we feel like we've really done a good job of being able to accomplish that, and the fact that this funding cannot be utilized for residential streets, but it can be used for those commercial, for the arterial and collector streets. So by utilizing this funding to do more of those type of commercial projects, and then utilizing the bond capacity for more of the residential street projects, we're able really to accomplish both, and still be able to answer that plea for more residential street funding just a little bit differently than what we've had before.
So is it allowable, I assume that type B can actually at some point fund almost maintenance of streets?
Yes, and so within type B specifically, it is allowable for the maintenance and operation. You can utilize that for maintenance and operations, and so yes, it could be utilized for
15 years out.
Exactly.
Saying, okay, well, kind of
Yes.
like what we got. Okay, great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. So,
Mr. Temez, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
okay.
I had one other question that was thrown at me, and I'm sorry to throw it at you at the last minute.
That's okay.
Somebody asked me about the crime control district. This
Yes.
is we're not associated with that. That's a separate district.
That is a
But
separate-
when does that one come up?
So that one comes up in 28, I believe. It expires in 2028.
Okay, somebody said 26, and I said, I know
No,
it's only a
it's-
10-year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it comes up in 2028. And so that is still receiving 1/8 cents. That does go to the crime control district. That was one of the other things that came up in our surveying, is that people wanting to support that. We already have that. We have reauthorized that, voters have reauthorized that sales tax several times. And so we anticipate that that would be the same thing when we take it back to the voters back prior to 28 to go ahead and reauthorize that sales tax also.
And that actually funds some police positions, although as the cost of policemen go up, maybe fewer
Exactly.
positions, right?
And it does fund, so as we add new positions, a lot of times they start out funding in the crime control district along with related equipment, and then they then transition over to the general fund as we continue to build capacity within the general fund. It really does complement the general fund funding very well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much for the update. Oh,
Sure.
you want to
We got
set the
one more.
ballot?
Exactly. So that's the ballot language. You can read that if you are having challenges sleeping at night. And then the second is Proposition F. And so this is for that citywide flood control drainage projects along with that downtown seawall flood control. And so this can be utilized across the city for those flood control, coastal resiliency, drainage projects that will be in support of either activating areas that have not been able to be activated for economic development, or in support of those areas that already have economic development. It also, like I said, it supports that downtown seawall. There's a lot of concern. We heard that a lot when we went out and we're doing our community input sessions. And so this is not only for what we consider the flood, the seawall, which runs right along shoreline, but this is for the breakwater, for the L and the T head land masses, for what we consider the seawall, also the salt flat levees, the flood control pumps, along with continued maintenance within the marina basin, which would include dredging and things like that to really maintain that, because that all works together as a flood control system. A lot of people don't realize that. This would not necessarily be used for any type of vertical infrastructure on the T and the L heads, but it would be anything that's in support of that flood control system that all works together down there.
Right. And even if, like in the future, because I've mentioned to y'all that this is a big buzzword in grant.
Yes.
Is, how do you maybe even add a secondary structure that would help with sea level rise and
Exactly.
things like that. So
And
that
that
would
is-
be allowable. It would be in that area identified as part of the seawall, right?
Exactly, be part of that flood control structure.
Right.
Or that system. And so, yes, and, one of the things, one of the more important projects we're looking at right now, we're looking at that breakwater,
Yes.
just with the breakwater kind of sinking along with water rising, that right now it isn't sufficient to keep some of that wave action. And we've seen damage due to over the last couple of storms due to that wave action. So there is a study underway looking to see what needs to be done there. And so I would venture a guess that's probably going to really be our next big project, is look at that breakwater structure to see how that needs to be modified and built up.
And because of the type of funding, if there was a major expenditure needed, we could use these as revenues against a bond if we wanted to.
Exactly.
go ahead with them.
And that is a good point. So because sales tax is considered very stable, and there are those fluctuations, but you have a good historical collection of sales tax, this could be bonded against. Now, the term was limited to only 20 years. And so if we did want to do some type of major project, it would basically the bonds would have to be issued kind of day one, or we could do less than 20-year bonds, which is not uncommon. You could do 15-year bonds, 10-year bonds.
Right.
To be able to, instead of utilizing a pay-go type of thing, utilizing the bonding to do a larger project with that.
Okay, thank you. Good information. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth, I know, Peter and staff. And,
Yes.
I've always thought that streets take care of the city's assets and the seawall and flood were important. I've always thought it should be type B and not type A because there's more flexibility.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to compliment you all. I think you worked through it and it's easier to understand.
Right.
And it's laid out on the table. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And both of these will be reauthorized under type B. So eventually, as just kind of, for next steps on that, if the voters do approve both of these, we will most likely let the expiration expire at that time it expires. So we'll have the current arena expires in March of 25. The other one, September of 25. The seawall authorization expires in March of 26. We'll let those expire, and then as it expires, we'll apply with the comptroller to then switch the funding from the current authorization to the new authorization. And then any monies that are remaining within the type A can either be utilized for the current purposes, or they can be transferred over to the type B.
I think I just answered my own question. The type A board will continue?
Until the funding is fully expended.
Okay.
And so whether it is expended through the type A, or because we're utilizing some purposes, we could possibly at the conclusion of that authorization take any remaining balances and transfer it over to the type B.
Eventually we'll have one board.
And we'll eventually have one board, yes.
That would be a blessing.
Yes.
Someday, way in the future, right?
And not that far future. I mean, we're looking pretty close.
We've had a hard time getting rid of that, eh? But much like the housing, you're saying maybe the arena, we could just take any balance in the marina fund and put it in this new fund.
Yeah, especially since we're utilizing some things. The arena would also be under the new authorization. Seawall would be under the new authorization. And so that is something that those balances could be, the A can be closed out and the balance is transferred over to B.
At looking at the projects, I had one question personally, which is North Beach Phase 2. What is North Beach Phase 2?
That is the linear canal project, and so it's broken into two phases. One is the first phase, which is more on the north end of the island. Phase 2 would be waiting for the bridge to come down, and then that canal would extend down towards the aquarium and kind of back in there where the bridge is, to provide that relief in that area too.
So this is a drainage canal?
Exactly.
Do you all ever anticipate that you might need a pump on that thing?
Yeah, I think there will be a
Okay,
pumping
thank you.
system.
Yeah,
I think we learned some lessons just recently.
right, on those areas that are built out, mostly by the Texas State Aquarium and the Lexington, that will need a pumping system.
Right.
So the linear canal will be, not only will there be a canal where the water can go during rain events, but all the roads and the ditches will slope into it. However, in areas where property's already built out, that's difficult to do, right, to change the configuration. So in those cases, we'll need some type of pumping system to remove water from higher elevations into the canal.
Well, and even to get it out if
Right.
you have incoming tide, much like the pumping system downtown.
Right.
Pump against the flow.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Is that it? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zanoni, do you have a report?
Just the same one I presented earlier, which was on the budget. So just to recap here, in case anybody's just now watching, we're more than halfway done the city's budget development process for the fiscal year that begins October 1. We will have had, by the time it's over, 7 community engagement sessions. There's 2 more, one tonight, one this Wednesday night. City Council is actively engaged in getting more information from the departments, and they will be holding a total of 5 workshops on the budget. And we've held 3 so far. There's a 4th one this Thursday, and the final one is next Thursday. And then City Council will adopt the budget on a first read on September 3rd, Tuesday, September 3rd, the day after Labor Day. And then the final read, the second read, and adoption is on September 10th. And the fiscal year begins October 1. The budget is balanced, and as we've been telling the community, it does focus on our core services, police and fire and streets, and it also has property tax relief for working families and seniors, and it also eliminates fees. The City Council let the street user fee sunset, did not renew that to give relief to working families, and so the budget is a reflection of all those matters. It is balanced. Across the state of Texas, many cities, just like our city, are seeing a downturn in property tax revenues due to lower appraisals and less new development. And so the team has done well and the council has done well in giving policy direction so that we set our priorities, have a balanced budget, and we move forward. And that's what this plan is. And so we look forward to the community coming out tonight and then Wednesday night, and they can come and see us at City Council as well.
Just a little tweaking. Any homeowner will get the $25,000 increase in exemption. I don't have to be working.
Yeah, so there's 2 exemptions that City Council, there's 2 exemptions City Council approved. One was the general homestead exemption, and any homeowner that has their home as a general home will receive that. That's a doubling, so it went from 10% of the value is taken off the tax bill, the city's tax bill, went from 10% to 20%.
Right.
And then they also approved increasing the senior exemption, and for those with disabilities, that goes from $50,000 to $62,500. So if there's a senior or a disabled individual in a general homestead exemption, they would qualify for both.
Okay.
$10,000 to $20,000, and then $50,000 to $62,500.
Thank you.
Yes,
Helps
ma'am.
make housing affordable. Appreciate it. Quickly taken up by the windstorm, but okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. I'll call the meeting adjourned.